Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of From Print to Pod. We have with us returning surgeon Dr. Stephen Cohen. Welcome, Dr. Cohen. Tell us just a little bit about you.
Thank you again for having me. Stephen Cohen, board certified in both general and colon and rectal surgery. Been in practice now for over 30 years, teaching, training, educating both medical students and residents.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are going to be discussing in this episode his published article, The Price of Integrity: A Surgeon's Journey Through Legal Battles and Professional Betrayal. And this is going to be an extremely valuable share. It already has been with his article. Dr. Cohen and I were just talking about the need for more of these resources for physicians and the possibility that SoMeDocs might be putting together a medical legal conference towards that end. So let's dive right to it. The first question is the following. Looking back, what was the most emotionally difficult part of being put on probation by the ACS? The professional repercussions or the sense of betrayal from an organization that you respected?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I mean, the American College of Surgeons, I've been a part since I became a fellow in the 90s, and I've always held high regard for an organization that seemingly should have your back if and when there's challenges, whether it's against your license, whether it's against hospital administrators. Back in the day when I first started in practice, in order for me to get active privileges at hospitals, we had to be proctored, right? So here I am as a PGY 7, have done many cases as a surgery resident and felt like I could do anything, like most of us can. But having other surgeons that are not trained like me, specifically in colorectal surgery, telling the rest of the community whether I was a good surgeon or not. But the College of Surgeons should be the ones to have your back if and when you run into issues, which I did back 30 years ago. So the problem in this particular case was that, and when you read the article, I was asked by a plaintiff attorney to opine on standard of care of a surgeon placing a central line. Well, that's pretty straightforward. The problem was that particular surgeon did not meet standard of care based on how we were trained to do it and how I train other young residents to do it. There was a complication, and this case went all the way to trial. The jury found for the doctor, which is not unusual, right? I mean, 87% of the time, all of us that get sued, if and when you go to trial, even with bad evidence, you're going to win for a lot of different reasons that we can talk at another time. So that particular surgeon won his case, made a formal complaint to the American College of Surgeons that Dr. Cohen was, number one, the driver of the lawsuit. Number two, his data was his information and explanation was circular and not data driven. So I read the complaint to the American College and I said, well, that's reasonable. I could not have been the driver of the lawsuit. I'm here doing my own thing. Somebody reached out to me, number one. Number two, I had no less than 5 articles to corroborate, because nothing in the literature is authoritative, but it's reliable. So reliable articles to say exactly what I said under oath.
The follow-up question to that is, at any point, did you consider remaining silent in the malpractice case to avoid professional fallout? And what gave you courage to testify anyway?
Yeah, so I'm not one to be silent about anything. I mean, when the complaint was that I was the driver of the lawsuit, that's silly to me, right? Because I'm definitely not the driver. In this particular case, the second surgeon who repaired the injury to the patient and the neurologist who was taking care of the patient real time 2 years before I got involved in the case also testified on the plaintiff side to say this surgeon fell below the standard of care, right? And that breach in the standard of care led to harm. Those were doctors that worked at the hospital with this particular surgeon that said what I said. So, there's always fallout when you tell the truth, but that's okay. Remember that the truth is always on your side. So I don't have a problem telling the truth because my role as a medical expert is to opine on standard of care. The ultimate outcome is not up to me. It's up to the lawyers if they're going to settle the case, or it's up to the jury, which it was in this particular case. But when I came in front of the board 6 months after the complaint to explain what I did, within the first 30 seconds, I knew it was going to be a bad outcome. I mean, I can tell by their body language, I can tell by their shaking their head. I had a 10-page rebuttal explaining what I just told you. I'm not the driver of the lawsuit. We're never the driver of the lawsuit, right? Number one. Number two, here's my 5 articles. So it's not circular, it was data driven. And there's other plaintiff experts that were not just plaintiff experts, they were taking care of the patient. They were treating physicians that said exactly what I said. But the problem with the American College of Surgeons is that it has now become a political organization to really punish those of us who testify on behalf of the patient. And that to me is very disheartening because all we're doing is telling the truth. And I've said this before under oath. The only way this system works, the medical legal system, which I didn't develop, is you have to have qualified, board certified physicians testifying to the jury, to the attorneys, to the courts, what we do and why we do it. It doesn't work unless you have someone like me testifying on the behalf of the truth of what we do in medicine.
And I think that in general, humanity doesn't work if we are not honest people. Okay.
Right. It's like in the police department, right? Nobody likes internal affairs because they're the ones that are also police officers, but they have to call out the bad actors.
Yeah.
But but again, throughout my career, I've been on every hospital I've been on. I've been on peer review. Now, peer review is not really punitive, but we look at was there systems issues? Did somebody meet the standard of care? How can we protect the community that we took an oath to serve?
And that's where the beauty of thick skin comes in. You got to know where your faults are. You got to be realistic about them. You have to be humble as a physician. So, to round out these few questions about your personal journey, how did your experience with the ACS change the way that you view professional medical societies in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think my experience really is based on the American College of Surgeons, but so being put on probation doesn't really mean anything, actually. And I didn't know that. So in my own personal journey, and I've written another article about this that we've talked about, I've been sued myself, right? And it's one of the experts that was hired to opine that Stephen Cohen fell below the standard of care actually was caught lying under oath. And again, any deposition we do, any trial we do, it's all public record, right? So anybody can go back and review it. So this particular expert that opined against me was caught lying under oath, and he was automatically kicked out of the American College of Surgeons and lost his fellowship status. Well, they didn't do that to me because nobody said I lied under oath. They just didn't like what I did, opining on the behalf of a patient. So I got put on probation. What does probation mean? Probation means that I could not hold an officer position for a 1 year period. Okay, I've never held an officer position, but that was the punishment. The problem is, or why they did that, is any action against a licensing board gets reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank. So now every deposition or trial, if the opposite attorney is allowed to ask me that question, I have to explain it. So the explanation is everything I did was I testified honestly and truthfully, but they put me on probation. And the reason they do that is they don't, they look down upon those of us that testify against members of the society.
Okay, now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of actual expert testimony and ethics. Do you believe the fear of professional retaliation discourages other surgeons and physicians from serving as expert witnesses for patients? And what does that mean for justice in malpractice cases?
Yeah, so good two-part question. Definitely, many of my colleagues will not do what I do because of the blowback, because of the reputation. Again, you have to have thick skin. The other way that I look at it is, and I've said this before, about 40% of the time when I'm asked to review a case on the plaintiff's side, I find the provider met the standard of care and did not breach the standard of care, and that breach didn't cause harm anyway. Over 30 plus years, I've saved a ton of physicians from getting sued. So I think that's an important aspect of it is that, there's, a lot of us that get sued think there's too many lawyers and there's too many legal lawsuits. And, we get sued for bad outcome. We don't get sued for malpractice. But I am playing a small part in looking at those cases and explaining to the attorney, they might not like the answer, that this provider met the standard of care. So, but yes, I think there's a lot of blowback. I've had personal colleagues that have had their life threatened for testifying against them. That has not happened to me yet. I'm sure it's coming, but those of us that do this kind of work have to understand that you will not make a lot of friends, even though you're telling the truth.
There's a recurring theme here, and that's having thick skin. I think we
Hmm.
might have to like create some swag with thick skin on it. I think we would have some takers from medicine. You emphasized that your testimony was based on clear medical evidence. How do you prepare yourself for situations where the legal outcome might still contradict the medical facts?
Yeah, it's challenging because there is no doubt that it wasn't just me, but I had good literature, recent literature of how this procedure is done. It's how I was trained 30 years ago, certain steps we take in surgery. What is the standard of care, which is what a reasonable, prudent surgeon or provider would do under similar circumstances. And in this particular case, it's very interesting. This surgeon who won his case in front of the jury, they did not have an expert to opine that he met the standard of care, which to me is telling, right? If I do something and I cause a problem and I think I met the standard of care, if I can't even find an expert to say that I met the standard of care, that should be a red flag. But when you walk into a trial, all bets are off. And I hate to say this, and I've said it before, the truth doesn't necessarily matter in a court of law. You're talking to individuals who don't have any medical background. They don't know. It's a game, it's a show, it's who they like, who they don't like. So it can be a challenge. And the odds are in favor of the doctor getting sued, even with bad evidence, like in this case, right? Because to me, this was a clear cut. He can't find an expert. All the information was there. I was in trial on video, so I wasn't there real time. So I don't know how the opening statement, I don't know the closing, I don't know if the jury was nodding off. I've been into trial before. I'm watching one of the jury members nodding off and sleeping while I'm talking. That's a problem. Either they make up their mind already before I walked in the room, or they're not paying attention and they don't care. So it's a challenge on both sides, no matter what side you're testifying for.
Now, you talk a lot about younger physician and mentoring. What advice would you give them, especially young physicians who are asked to testify in malpractice cases, but are maybe concerned about the risks to their careers?
Yeah, and I have many young residents that ask me about this a lot. And the first thing I tell them is that you have to be able to sit in a room because most depositions in the old days were in person. Now we do them in Zoom, but you have to be able to sit in a room across from a provider that's board certified like you, that is trained like you, that has done as many or more of this particular operation that you have done, look at them in the eye and tell them they fell below the standard of care and that breach caused harm to that patient. If you can't do that, this is not the line of work for you. because it is a challenge. And I have been in many depositions in the past, sitting right across the table from the doctor. They can't ask me questions, but if looks could kill, I would have been dead a long time ago. Because you're right, because having been sued in the past, when you think you did everything right and somebody telling you you're an idiot, you did everything wrong, when you're emotionally involved, it's very difficult. You have to take the emotion out of it, stick to the medicine. What's the standard of care? What should have been done?
Okay, let's take a step back now and talk about the bigger picture. From your perspective, how should organizations like the ACS balance protecting their members with upholding the truth and patient safety?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think one of the issues that I had with the American College of Surgeons is that the panel that was talking to me and when I was giving my explanation of what I did, just like I said, and what's written in the article in detail, is that many of them have never done that procedure. That's almost like it's in a jury of your peers, which is not your peers, right? So that panel should have been other board certified general surgeons who have done that procedure many times versus individuals that are not involved in day to day taking care of patients.
Okay, next question. We sort of already got a bit of your perspective on, so I'm going to brush on it quickly. And if you have anything to add, you can. And that was going to be if you think that the ACS's response to your case reflects a broader culture of loyalty within medicine that sometimes overshadows accountability.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's absolutely true because again, even my own mentors and colleagues along the last 30 years have advised me that I shouldn't be involved in the medical legal world because it will hurt my reputation. So that is definitely the overwhelming theory of any of these societies, whether it's the American College of Surgeons, Board of Medicine, pediatrics. They look down upon physicians that testify against other doctors. And that is the theme across the board. There's no doubt.
And how has this experience shaped the way that you advocate for patient safety and medical integrity today?
Well, I don't think it's really changed. I mean, I think it jaded my opinion of the societies that I looked highly upon, but and I think the reason that they gave me my quote unquote punishment of probation that got reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank is they want to dissuade me from continuing to do what I do. But the way I look at it, it's like when somebody tells me the word no, I'm thinking next opportunity. So again, I don't care if it's a defense attorney. I don't care if it's a plaintiff attorney. Sometimes when I'm reviewing a case, it could be 4 to 6 weeks from the conversation I had with the attorney. I don't even remember what side I'm testifying for, but I don't care, right? What should a reasonable, prudent physician have done? Did it cause a breach? Did it cause harm? And it's the facts of the case. So it hasn't really changed what I do. Um, and doing things like that doesn't really dissuade those of us that want to advocate for the truth in medicine and science.
Okay, now let's finish things off by looking forward, hopefully in a bit of an optimistic note. You ultimately chose not to renew your ACS membership. What would need to change in professional organizations for you or others in your position or others that are listening to this to consider rejoining and trusting them again?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the reason I didn't, I was on probation for a year, so I couldn't hold a officer position, which is fine. But the more I thought about it, once I got to the end of my year of probation, remember, it costs a lot of money to join these groups. I mean, I was paying between $500 and $1,000 a year since 1996, which is a long time, to be a member of a society that doesn't have my back and support me in cases like this. So my decision to not rejoin them was, why would I do that? I think the only way we can get, back to a situation where those types of societies are reputable and support the physicians, that you have to be honest with what they're doing, and having a different panel of physicians, having the group of physicians that looking at what you did and paying attention to why we did and what we do, and not just err on the side of punishing those who advocate for the truth. And that's going to take some time, and I think that's not going to change in the short term.
A lot of food for thought was discussed here, so thank you so much. And a reminder to those listening that Dr. Cohen will be one of our esteemed speakers at the upcoming Finance, Investing, and Real Estate Conference, as well as the Entrepreneurship and Networking Conferences. They're all online, they're easy to attend while they're going on live, and then maybe a medical legal event that we may put on in the future. So, Dr. Cohen, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.